This topic has been discussed on our Guided by Cardia channel several times already, but those videos were shorter. Since then we found more sources and can add more details. Also, at the time only Sword World 1.0 had been translated. Now Record of Lodoss War Companion has also been fan-translated. Many people incorrectly assume Sword World was created as a result of the TSR debacle. While TSR's intervention did matter, it wasn't the catalyst that created Sword World. Instead, it was the obstacle that forced Group SNE to accelerate and formalize plans they already had, to build a story-forward Japanese tabletop RPG scene accessible to ordinary readers. This ambition is why Group SNE was officially formed in 1987 under Hitoshi Yasuda. The TTRPG workload, replays, writing, editing, and publishing, was quickly expanding, and Yasuda was the person who could turn private play into a commercial format. After all, they did have proof that taking a non-D&D approach could work in Japan. Their Tunnels and Trolls translation had already been a major success, often cited at more than 100,000 copies sold. This demonstrated that the market didn't need to rely on a famous foreign brand, like D&D, to be successful, cutting TSR out as the middleman, so to speak. So now let's explore the history of these two intertwined games and set the record straight. The early history of Sword World RPG and Record of Lodoss War Companion begins in the mid-1980s when TTRPG were gaining popularity in Japan through magazine replays. This was an educational format that taught people how tabletop role-playing actually works, by demonstrating it in action, not by dumping a rulebook on new players. The Lodoss replay era, 1986 to 1988. The foundation for both games was the original Record of Lodoss War replay, which began serialization in Comptiq magazine in 1986. Featuring now iconic characters like Parn and Deedlit, this series was played using the BECMI version of the original Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D, system. Lodoss War is widely credited with igniting Japanese TTRPG boom. This matters because replays weren't just session transcripts. In the 1980s, Western rulebooks tended to feel like dry, confusing manuals. They explained stats and skills, but not the social contract of play, or what you're supposed to do at the table with friends. The classic beginner's trap, as described by Hitoshi Yasuda, was the town guard problem. Players, thinking like arcade gamers, would walk into the first town and immediately attack the guards, because they didn't yet understand that a TTRPG world reacts like an actual world, not like a beat-em-up stage. Replays were able to help overcome that friction. Readers could learn the rhythm of play, talking, negotiating, choosing goals, by watching beloved characters make choices. Falling in love with Parn and Deedlit also taught the market what it wanted: story first. These adventures were set on the accursed island of Lodoss, part of a larger fantasy world called Forcelia, which Ryo Mizuno had been developing since high school. The replay serialized in Comptiq starting in 1986 used the BECMI D&D rules. However, when Group SNE and Kadokawa Shoten began to publish them in book form, TSR intervened. TSR's policy required that any book using the D&D rules must be a TSR-branded product. While they did acknowledge that Group SNE owned Lodoss's characteristics and stories, they did not permit publishing books that used D&D mechanics. In order to release the replays commercially, Group SNE was therefore forced to create an original system. So rather than building a system from scratch, Lodoss Companion was adapted from the mechanics of the PC-98 computer game Record of Lodoss War: The Grey Witch, developed by Hummingbird Soft. The system was designed to feel familiar to computer RPG fans who might have found traditional tabletop systems too abstract or complex. Meanwhile, the rules were intentionally kept simpler than those of Sword World RPG in order to lower the barrier for the large influx of fans coming on board from the Lodoss novels and computer games. The defining feature of the companion system was the concentration mechanic. This acted as a hero point system that would allow players to re-roll a check using a specific stat called, funnily enough, concentration. It was meant to represent the extraordinary talent or divine luck of heroes such as Parn or Deedlit, giving players a way to shape the story's flow and reinforcing the high fantasy epic feel of the source material. The replayed replays. Since the original magazine replays for the first two story arcs, the Grey Witch and Fire Demon arcs, used D&D rules, they could not be published as standalone books in their original form. As a result, when Lodoss Companion was released in September of 1989, Group SNE had to replay or convert these adventures to their new original system for their print debut. Relationship to Sword World. While both games were set in the shared world of Forcelia, they served different purposes. Lodoss Companion was a brand-specific system designed to support the Record of Lodoss War media franchise and its digital-focused fans. Sword World RPG was designed by Miyoki Kiyomatsu as a definitive, high-quality tabletop system intended for a general audience. Eventually, the Lodoss setting was integrated into the Sword World system via the Lodoss Island World Guide, which introduced superhero points, an evolution of the concentration system to allow Sword World characters to perform at the legendary levels of power seen in Lodoss. The design of Sword World RPG. While the Lodoss replays were still ongoing, various Group SNE members, including Hitoshi Yasuda, Ryo Mizuno, and Miyoki Kiyomatsu, began developing their own original Japanese TTRPG. Miyoki Kiyomatsu led the system design for this game, called Sword World RPG. Sword World's design prioritized accessibility. It aimed to make TTRPGs approachable for students and children who found traditional box set games too complicated or expensive. Unlike most contemporary RPGs sold in expensive boxes at toy stores, Sword World was released in bunkobon pocketbook format for approximately 640 yen, allowing it to be sold in regular bookstores. Kiyomatsu insisted that the game only includes standard 6-sided dice. This was a practical choice, as polyhedral dice such as D20s were difficult to find in Japan at the time. Despite it using only 2 6-sided dice, Kiyomatsu, a mathematics major from Kyoto University, engineered the system to have a sophisticated balance. A primary tool for this was the rating table, which utilized 2d6 to produce a wide range of random results for damage and recovery. This mechanic was inspired by the missile tables in the board game Battletech. World building and Forcelia. As the system was being finalized, Ryo Mizuno would expand the world of Forcelia, which had first appeared in the Record of Lodoss War replays in Comptiq magazine. To give Sword World its own separate identity from Lodoss, the game was set on the massive continent of Alakrast. This in turn created a shared world, where Lodoss fans could feel at home, while still providing a much larger canvas for new stories. The setting was defined as the Age of Swords, taking place approximately 500 years after the fall of the high magic kingdom of Kastul. In this era, high-level magic was rare, and problems were more often solved through physical force and adventurers' wits. This world was not built by Mizuno alone. Other Group SNE members such as Hiroshi Yamamoto, who developed the Western nations, and Sho Tomono, who created the Azard Archipelago, contributed significantly to fleshing out the setting. To promote this upcoming system, Group SNE would serialize new replays, such as the Devil May Care adventures in Dragon Magazine starting in late 1988. Note that this Dragon Magazine was a Japanese fantasy light novel magazine, not to be confused with TSR's magazine of the same name. The 1989 releases. The year 1989 marked the definitive launch of both systems as independent products. Sword World RPG was officially released by Fujimi Shobo on April 10, 1989. It was an immediate sensation, selling over 100,000 copies within its first year. Record of Lodoss War Companion was released in September of 1989. Its arrival would allow for the publication of the original Comptiq replays in book form, even though they did have to be replayed or converted to the new original system in order to make their print debut. The success of these two releases solidified Forcelia as Japan's premier fantasy setting in gaming, and Sword World RPG would go on to be supported for nearly 20 years, up until 2008. But that's a topic for another video.